Hey guys, Eternal Hero Eleron, and this is Warlords of Draenor beta discussion, and I just wanted to remind everyone, before I get into the discussion, that tomorrow is the 6.0, mini, not mini, but patch before, it's the patch that brings all the systems of Warlords but doesn't unlock them. The changes. Tuesday. So it'll be roughly a month before Warlords comes out. So keep that in mind. Now then, you're probably wondering, why am I on my orc? Well, we're going to talk about horde stuff, orcish stuff. A quote that Garrosh Hellscream had uttered: "We are orcs, nothing can break our spirits." Well, here's the thing. Orcish culture has always been a bit warlike and very savage. And, you know, it's okay to keep it like that, but keep in mind, there are flaws to it. And, you know, it's okay to like the orcs for what they are. It's fine. Just realize it's flawed. But don't try to say, you know, they're just these misunderstood people. I mean, if we're talking about the Iron Horde orcs, or whatever, and I'm stuck. Wow. Seriously? See, now I have the earth. Wow. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is orcs are very savage and violent and stuff like that. And there's a new loading screen we'll have to endure for a long while. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at is... it's Drekthar. Yeah. Sorry about the FPS drops. It's beta. Leave me alone. Anyway, discussion is about orcs, and, you know, their culture and just how they react to things, and the horde. And many are like, "Oh, fuck the Alliance, death to the Alliance, rah rah rah." Well, let's go do some history, shall we? First of all, long ago, the orcs went to war thanks to Kil'jaeden and, you know, Ner'zhul, Gul'dan and all that. They invaded. And they had no temperament, so to speak. They killed anything in their path on Azeroth. Innocents, non-war, military people. They killed everyone, even children. Yes, I mean, it's not directly mentioned, but it's been hinted at, and we don't specifically see it because that would change the game's rating, but you can get away with a little teen game these days, anyway, but I digress. Anyway, so they invaded, and thanks to the power of demon blood coursing in their veins, and Grom was the first to... yes, Gromish Hellscream, your big hero, was the first to come there. Was the first to do it. And while in the short story recently back, Garrosh narrated the whole idea that Grom was one almost in a heroic fashion. And although that might not be necessarily the truth, or a lie he might have told himself, as I think Noble was the one who said that. Yeah, I think so. So, yeah. Personally, gathering by what orc culture is, I don't think it was selfish, but I think it was more of a gaining power and accepting an offer. There was no altruistic way. And keep in mind, there are some more noble orcs on Draenor. They're there. They're not seen very much because the culture itself is just so different, and that's why it doesn't appeal to me. So I'm I'm a big heroism kind of dude. I like the Orcs. I think they're iconic in Warcraft. However, I do acknowledge that they're different kinds of people. Anyway, so they invaded Azeroth, caused a whole bunch of chaos, invaded, caused so much chaos and destruction. And yes, they were being manipulated, in of sorts, but in the end they did lose, and what happened to them? Ended up in concentration camps. Now, many players, oh, that was bad, man. So bad. Was it? Because the Orcish race could have just decided to extinct, a la genocide, which the Orcs were ending up doing that. Heck, they almost did that to the Draenor. I forgot to mention, they really carved the path of the Draenor, just assaulted them. Women and children, too. So, for all you Orc lovers, please acknowledge that Orcs have a dark past. It's dark. I mean, it's freaking dark, man. So, please, don't try to hide behind this stuff. I mean, it's okay if you roleplay a character that had nothing to do with all this. That's cool. But you have to acknowledge that the Orcs have a dark past. You need to acknowledge this. You can't just, ignore what's in front of you. The Horde is not some uber awesome thing. It's actually quite scary when you look at it objectively. I'm not saying the Alliance is pure and all that. No, it has its issues. Every big civilization does. And if every massive force does. Now then, King Tyrannus, and the Orcs, actually, scratch that. The Orcs might have lost because of betrayals, but and I'm not really a fan of that. I prefer that the Alliance win because the Alliance win because we're better. Or at least, we won through strategy. That's one thing I'm not really liking, but, I'm biased because I'm Alliance. Ha ha ha. But the thing is, it would have been better if the Alliance eventually won by outwitting the Orcs eventually, because they got used to the idea of these Orcs. But I digress. Anyway, they lost because Gul'dan's an asshole, because he's a warlock. Because, warlocks. And such, they kind of decided, screw the Shadow Council. But in the end, despite that, they did create the Death Knights. I don't know why Doomhammer was okay with this, because it's roughly still warlock stuff. But I suppose that didn't matter to Orgrim, and he still, in some way, cared about his people. Which is fine, but it's in the same way that Garrosh cares about his people, but it's one of those things where, it's sort of short-sighted, even if you do care about your people. You can care about people and still go about it the wrong way. Know what I'm saying? I think that's still kind of bad. And I'm allowed to criticize it. And the Alliance is... Heck, I mean... The Alliance had one figure that just wanted to kill them all. That was... Gen Greymane. He wanted to off all the Orcs. I can understand the sentiment. And, Jaina, Proudmoore's father, wanted to too. He voted to kill them all. And to be honest... It's pretty if you think about it, the guy who chose not to off them was the father of a man who would turn out to be the future Lich King. Kind of interesting if you think about it. It really shows the highest of honor and virtuousness of the Alliance can offer. And although the Alliance is much different to what the First and Second War was, it still shows that, and that's what appeals to me. But this isn't Alliance talk. This is Orc discussion. Anyway, Orcs internment camps. People say it's really bad, and yes, they're lethargic. True, but perhaps that is the price that they must pay for all the damage and destruction that the Orcs themselves have caused. And many of the Orcs that were aged artificially. An interesting concept in terms of lore, personally, but it's damning on the Orcs because it affects their minds and they don't really develop and think straight. And we all know the story of Thrall. He his parents were killed, and as a baby he could have been killed, but he was raised by Blackmore as a slave. And yes, I don't believe in slavery. I never have. I never really liked the whole slavery thing. Never will. Even if it's fake, even if it's fictional, an awesome fictional interactive world like Warcraft. I never liked it. But yeah, Thrall worked as a slave. He eventually befriends a human female, Taretha. Flees Durnhold and, gets his Orcish people, makes this new horde that we all know today that's still savage, but in a way that's different, has a noble edge to it. That is the horde that the players are used to now. And many people are like, rah. Now think about it, in most fantasy stuff, you usually see Orcs as the typical aggressive antagonist, enemy. And that's how it started out, but Blizzard put it where they were manipulated of sorts. And so it's a different twist on it, and I'd say Blizzard kind of brought a semi-revolutionary way of fantasy Orcs. In Lord of the Rings, the Orcs were bad, evil by Lord Sauron, and Uruk-hai and the like. See what I'm saying? Puppies! And anyway, Thrall meets Grom Hellscream, who's pretty old by now, and he's done his fair share of stuff, but kind of tells him about his people and such, yada yada yada, but Grom still has that bloodlust. So Thrall does help Grom, and they help each other talk about his horde, his people, and the shamans. Thrall learns about shamanism. Anyway, I forgot to add that, Thrall does go after Durnhold Keep, but learns that Blackmore beheads Taretha. And Blackmore is a drunk little bastard. A really bad man. So Thrall, with his shaman elemental powers, destroys Durnhold Keep. We know what Thrall can do with the elements, because his power is great. So, except he spares Blackmore, I think. I don't recall. Someone correct me in the comments about that specific part. Anyway, and so he leads the horde that, kind of, even the people that are fighting, to spare them if he left his horde people alone, because at that point Thrall just wanted him and his people a home. And while they kind of did, of sorts, he did meet Orgrim Doomhammer, but he got killed by an Alliance Knight. And like I said, you can't quite blame humans at this point, because we're also used to Orcs just being bad people, so it leaves a bad image in our mind. I mean, if you put yourself in the humans' positions, you kind of can't blame them. And I know I said this about Orc stuff, but there's a human Alliance version of it too. And I know Blizzard loves their horde. Oh, no, you can have it. So, there's that. Understand. So, yeah. After Orgrim dies, Orgrim gives him his armor, and Doomhammer names him War Chief of the Horde. And Thrall is now the war chief of the Horde. He meets Drekthar, and I know this is semi out of order, but I'm kind of telling the story. Anyway, leads his orcs. He meets Medivh, or he doesn't know who the guy is. Leads his people out. Third War, Warcraft 3 stuff. He flees to Kalimdor, and along the way, Grom is still succumbing to his bloodlust and attacks the humans, even though Thrall doesn't want anything to do with this. He doesn't want to fight. So, yeah. And this is quite telling of Grom. I mean, yes, he did drink the blood. He was the first, and that's pretty damning. So, you know, we have to realize Grom isn't exactly this big hero. I mean, he was at the end, but... And he did something like, yes, he killed a big, massive demon, which I'll get to in a minute. But... it's hard to, you know, just ignore the bad things you've done. Massively. And sometimes it takes a while to atone for all the things. I mean, if you live the life of being a total asshole without, you know, suffering the consequences of all that, you're not gonna exactly be loved. And the Orcish people might have liked it, but there's still, in a way, they're kind of biased to their own foolishness because the demon blood just brainwashed them. And to this day, some people are still approving of it. And I know you guys love orcs, but I have to... yeah, I'm just sorry, but you have to understand that these orcs, and I'm sorry for ranting, but they haven't been good in this Iron Horde. They're worse. I mean, yeah, they're without the demon blood, but they're still worse. Now then, eventually, Grom does succumb, because he's fighting Night Elves. And Grom does resent Thrall for some bloody reason to take care of Lumber. Then again, that was a consequence because Grom couldn't control himself. He did drink the demon blood, after all. That's partially his fault. Eventually, Grom meets off with this pool of blood, and he does drink it because he feels it's the only way to beat the Night Elves and Cenarius, which he does. He drinks it again, which, again, he does so. Was he in a tough position? Sure. Are the Night Elves to blame? Not necessarily. They were encroaching on their land. They're semi-xenophobic and aggressive, almost rivaling the Orcs, but in a way, they do have some higher qualities. But this isn't about Night Elves. Anyway, Grom does kill Cenarius, and eventually he comes under the thrall of Manaroth, claiming he's free, and he turns into an Fel Orc. And Thrall has to go, with the help of Jaina Proudmoore, and thanks to Medivh, they tell each other they have to work with the Alliance and Horde have to work together to help Grom. And Garrosh never knew that Jaina Proudmoore helped his father reclaim some of his own mind back. Of his own mind from the demons. That's something he doesn't know. And he'll never know unless the ancestors tell him. Which I doubt, but we'll never know. It would have been nice for him to learn that. It probably would have, you know, stabbed his iron wall of pride. Garrosh needs his pride to be taken down a notch. And anyway, Grom and Thrall go fight Manor, Thrall isn't able to, but Grom in the end sacrifices himself and beats him. But in the end, costing his life. He does free the Orcish people from the blood curse. But it cost his own life, and he may have gained some wisdom. It's noted that if Thrall was a more better leader, I mean, Thrall is a good leader, but he's flawed and he's not perfect. And he wasn't able to, show his people and his son, Grom's son, that, that the things they did are bad. And the thing is, he kind of never did anything about that, so that's his fault in a way. But the Orcs did get screwed a lot by the Legion, and, their connection is important. So, and eventually, while they do eventually work with the Alliance and Night Elves to take down the Archimonde, it may not last for long. At one point, Jaina's father comes back and threatens Orc's new home, Orgrimmar, and, the Horde. It eventually turns out that Thrall has to rally his new Horde and invade Theramore, which was then taken over by Jaina's father. So there's tension because for some reason some Alliance soldiers are loyal to Jaina's father. At one point they invade and, Jaina steps aside because she knows this isn't right, because the Orcs at this time are not bad people, and at that time they are not bad. And while there's probably members who do want to go back to the old ways, but they are fools in terms of lore. And before anyone says, oh, it's gonna be Warcraft, it's Peacecraft, this is World of Warcraft, guys. There's going to be some kind of conflict going on, one way or another. It doesn't have to be Alliance versus Horde all the bloody freaking time. Okay? Blizzard is intelligent enough of what to do. They can't just fall back to Alliance versus Horde all the bloody time. Who you calling a weakling, boy? So, yeah, and Jaina's father is like, can you atone for genocide? I will never stop. So he basically almost wanted to genocide the Orcs because of what happened to him and his people. And for that, Jaina's father is not a good man. And many Alliance will like, but, look what happened. Yeah, I know. Believe me. But it does not justify genocide. You cannot justify genocide whatsoever. That's not good. It's not what the Alliance is about. It's proven because we didn't genocide them. I mean, Alliance members, if you just genocide the Orcs back, are you any better than the Orcs? No, you're not. You're just as bad as they are. You just don't have green skin. So remember that. Orcs have to live with this shit, and many just tend to ignore it. The Alliance is better than that. Anyway, so after that, Thrall with the help of Rexxar and the like. And yes, Thrall does learn the Vol'jin, so yeah. And along the way, the Orcs form their horde, World of Warcraft comes around. There's still many conflicts, yes, but in the War Song are up to their no good nonsense. So, the Orcs haven't really mended the damage they've done. Now, I don't and this might have been intentional on Blizzard's side, but again, if we're going by what we see, they didn't necessarily mend it. It just got worse and worse. And despite Thrall and Jaina's preventing this, eventually it came to a head. In Wrath, Garrosh was there, and Garrosh was very aggressive at that time. Just wanted to stop out the Alliance. These are the first few steps. And eventually, thanks to the Wrathgate, which was mostly a lot of Forsaken, Varian Rin at the time didn't trust the Horde, and I don't blame him, because he has the Forsaken with them, and which, again, is odd, having them in the Horde. So, I mean, it's too late now. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. You can at least tolerate them to a degree, but you don't have to trust them right away. So, yeah. Anyway. After Wrathgate, Uldar comes along. Thrall brings Garrosh. I don't know why he does it. He keeps bringing... In some of the comics, he keeps bringing Garrosh along. I mean, if you're gonna interact with the Alliance, and you know Garrosh is a freaking hothead, I don't know, it just seems really, really weird. It would have made sense to bring an actual advisor who knows his shit, instead of Garrosh trying to teach him, but Garrosh is one of those individuals that he may never learn until... I know it seems really weird that nobody will ever learn, but I'm of the belief eventually people will learn their ways, but in lore, some characters just aren't gonna learn. They just have to be slain or almost punched in the face really hard with reality. So yeah, at the Uldar, you know, Garrosh and Varian taunt each other. And when I say that, I mean both of them are at fault for this. So Varian kind of doesn't trust the Horde, and, you know, tensions are worse. Come Cataclysm! Your favorite expansion, right guys? Elements are Torment, Thrall leaves, makes Garrosh War Chief, and that's the freaking stupidest decision, because we all know why, right? Right. But there wasn't really that many other decisions either. And Varian does make a good decision to the Orcs, Sourfang's son, remember? He lets him mourn his son. Which, they really should have just addressed that more, because it's a big proponent of how Varian is. Deep down, Varian is a good man. He has a lot of anger, but he is a noble man in his heart. He just has issues with the Orcs. And can you quite blame him? I can't. Anyway, Garrosh is war chief despite the saying no and his aggressiveness. Garrosh doesn't seem to want to, which would think if someone doesn't want to be leader, they're a good leader. You're dead wrong, son! Garrosh is very aggressive. He changes the way Horde looks. It's more aggressive and offensive. It's a different look on the Horde. And I think it ceased to be Thrall's Horde after that. Or the new Horde. It just was the Horde all over again. Just without demon blood. Garrosh was very aggressive. And the core crime was his protective army. And eventually, Garrosh attacks Theramore. And decide, in the novel, we are going to exterminate the Night Elves. Oh hey, genocide. Nice to meet you. It's like genocide is a big friend of the Orcs. I mean, sheesh. Again, repeating history. The Orcs are repeating history. Again. Once again, the Orcs don't seem to learn, which is a big problem. They attack Draenor. Jaina is pretty pissed off, and while I'm not fond of the characterization that goes on with her, I don't blame why she felt the way she did. So, I blame Garrosh as much as long as that one Blood Elf dude. So, yeah. Mist in Pandaria is almost over, guys. Garrosh is in full assault. He wants to take Pandaria for the Orcs. But I thought Kalimdor was enough. So, what is enough for the Orcish people? And while the Alliance does do a few bad things there, the Horde does is, worse. There's no denying it. Horde is just crazy as hell. And yes, the Horde may seem badass, but it's not mutually exclusive to being a bad person, too. Something may seem badass, but you can still be a jerk, and still be good, too. But make no mistake, Garrosh isn't exactly good. He doesn't like it when people disagree with him. It's not exactly something he's good at. And eventually, he wants to look for more artifacts. He uses the bell to, power his warriors with the Shah, because he believes the Orcs are strong and can handle it. So he basically puts that on his people, the bell, crushes Anduin's bones because he breaks the bell, because Anduin tries to stop it. Anduin thinks he can stop the violence by being pacifist, which doesn't work with an extremist. Eventually, Garrosh looks for more artifacts, and eventually he finds the Heart of Yasarj, an old god artifact. And in the end, at 5.4, he corrupts the... Actually, before that, they start excavating the Veil. And while I said the Alliance didn't do anything, yeah, they didn't. I don't know why, but again, this is why I'm talking about it. And they find the heart. Garrosh uses it, and although that one the leader of the Shadowpen tries to stop Garrosh, but fails and almost dies, and Garrosh decides to dump the freaking heart into that little well thingy and corrupt all of the Veil, because Garrosh's arrogance thinks he can do whatever he wants with no consequences. Which, I might add, is supremely arrogant. And so, enough is enough. We besiege Orgrimmar. Lots of orcs die. Garrosh uses his heart, and he thinks Azeroth belongs to him and the orcs, which is funny. The orcs' native homeworld is not Azeroth, it's Draenor. And thanks to the recklessness, it blew up. It is now Outland. I mean, how much more arrogant can you get? And many of the orcs went along with this. It's like they can't think. I don't know if this is intended, but if you're an orc, you're probably looking like pretty freaking stupid if you can't think for your bloody self, and if you disagree, I mean, you're bad. In the real world, getting mad at someone for disagreeing with you isn't exactly good. It's okay, and I have issues with this myself. But I try not to get so aggressive about it. Garrosh was a tyrant, and how the Horde works is leaving stuff open for tyrants to come in. So, Garrosh is dethroned, and while I think he should have died there, but we all know what happens. And in the War Crimes book, it's obvious Garrosh would do all this stuff again. He's so convinced. And even Anduin tries to talk him down, which I don't get. But okay. So Garrosh just doesn't care. He will stop them in any way. And so, the end result of all this is Orcs may seem badass, but they have a dark, dark past, and they need to learn their lesson. So, you Horde members, try to remember here. The Orcs have a savage and dark history. It's not exactly heroic or good. It's epic in a sense that it's interesting. And it's engaging. Engaging, yes. Even her heroism can be engaging, but you know what I mean. So I ask you, members of the Horde, and I'm not a Horde, I'm an Alliance. And you say, oh, you're biased. But the fact I'm making a video trying to address these things probably means I'm trying to discuss things. And Alliance members, I know you think, why the hell am I doing this? Well, it's for our own good and for this interactive experience of WoW's good. So trust me. I know there are folks who just won't learn, but you know what? That's more indicative of who they are than... Yeah, I know, yes, competitiveness between two groups of people is good, but there's a point where you have to understand what's in front of you. So, yeah, Orcs, dark history. Need to learn. I hope you guys liked my discussion. I'm sorry it ran on for so long. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and I apologize for going on a rant, but it needed to be done, and I wanted to make this video today. This is Eternal Hero Eleron. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps. And thanks for supporting my channel. And I'll see you next time on World of Warcraft discussion / Warlords of Draenor beta discussion. Goodbye.